The kitchen clock ticked past midnight when I heard Claire's laugh drift through the house. Not her usual laugh, this one had an edge to it, sharp and cruel like broken glass. I'd been nursing a whiskey in my home office, pretending to work on a consulting proposal that would probably get rejected anyway. 3 months since the layoffs at TechFlow, and I was running out of ways to look busy. "Owen's such a pushover," Claire's voice carried from the kitchen. "I swear, sometimes I think he'd roll over for anyone." I set down my glass and moved closer to the doorway. Matt Kincaid's voice responded. Our neighbor, the hotshot startup founder who drove a Tesla and wore designer suits to check his mailbox. "Come on, Claire. He can't be that bad. Want to bet?" My wife's voice turned playful in that dangerous way I'd learned to recognize over 15 years of marriage. "I could probably sell him for pocket change. $100 and a burger, he's yours." The silence stretched for maybe 3 seconds. Then Matt's voice, cocky and amused. "Deal." I heard the rustle of a wallet, the crisp sound of bills being counted. My hand tightened around the doorframe as Matt continued. "Here's $1,000. Consider it a down payment." Another silence. Then Claire, her voice smaller now. "Matt, I was joking." "Were you?" That was the moment. Not when I caught them together 6 weeks later. Not when I found the text messages. Not when I discovered the hotel receipts. Right then, standing in my own hallway in my ratty pajamas, listening to my wife get offered $1,000 for my dignity, something fundamental shifted inside me. I walked into the kitchen like I owned the place, because I did. "Evening, folks." I poured myself another whiskey from the bottle on the counter, my movements deliberate and calm. "Don't mind me, just grabbing a nightcap." Claire's face went white. Matt stood there holding a stack of hundreds like he'd forgotten what they were for. The kitchen island stretched between us, covered in the remnants of whatever intimate little snack they'd been sharing. "Owen," Claire stammered. "We were just having a business discussion?" I raised my glass in a mock toast. "Sounds fascinating. What's the going rate these days, Matt? 1,000 for a husband? Or is that the friends and family discount?" Matt's face flushed red. "Look, man, it wasn't what? Serious? Because you're standing in my kitchen at 12:30 in the morning with $1,000 in cash, talking about buying my wife's husband. That seems pretty serious to me." I took a slow sip of whiskey, letting the burn settle in my chest. Claire looked like she wanted to disappear into the marble countertop. Matt stuffed the money back in his wallet, but the damage was done. I'd seen it. More importantly, I'd heard everything. "I should go," Matt mumbled, already backing toward the door. "Good idea," I said. "Drive safe. Wouldn't want anything to happen to that pretty car of yours." After he left, Claire tried to explain. The words tumbled out in a rush. It was just a joke. She'd been drinking. Matt was being stupid with his money. I was overreacting. All the usual deflection she used when she got caught doing something she shouldn't. I listened without interrupting, nodding in all the right places. When she finished, I set down my empty glass and looked her straight in the eye. "You know what the funny thing is, Claire? I actually believe you were joking. But Matt wasn't. And that tells me everything I need to know about both of you." I headed for the stairs, then paused with my foot on the first step. "Oh, and Claire? Next time you want to auction me off, maybe wait until I'm not in the house. It's just common courtesy." That night, I lay in our king-sized bed, listening to Claire's fake sleep breathing and planning. Not revenge, not yet. Just thinking about the tools I had at my disposal. 20 years in tech consulting had taught me a few things about networks, security systems, and the digital footprints people leave behind. Matt's house was a smart home showcase, all connected devices and automated systems. He'd bragged about it at neighborhood barbecues, showing off his app-controlled everything like a kid with a new toy. What he probably didn't know was that most of those systems had default passwords, and the ones that didn't usually had security holes you could drive a truck through. I'd helped install similar systems for clients. I knew their weaknesses. By 3 in the morning, I had access to Matt's home network. His security cameras, his door locks, his sound system, even his smart refrigerator. The man had connected everything to the internet and protected it all with the password Startup Life 123. Some people never learn. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I started small. At 6 a.m., when Matt's alarm was supposed to go off, I triggered every smart device in his house simultaneously. Lights flashing, music blasting, coffee maker overflowing, garage door opening and closing like a mouth trying to speak. His security system recorded it all, and I made sure to save the footage. Then I locked him out of his own house. My phone rang 20 minutes later. Matt's number. Fletcher, what the hell did you do? Good morning to you too, Matt. Beautiful day, isn't it? My house is going crazy. The locks won't work, the alarm won't stop, and somehow my smart TV is playing the same cat video on repeat. That's terrible. Have you tried turning it off and on again? This isn't funny, Owen. I know you did something. I sipped my coffee, watching through our kitchen window as Matt stood on his front lawn in his underwear, shouting at his phone. Matt, I'm a laid-off tech consultant who apparently can be bought for $100 and a burger. What makes you think I have the skills to hack into your fancy house? Because... He stopped. Because finishing that sentence would mean admitting he'd underestimated me, and guys like Matt never admit that. Look, I continued, maybe your house is just trying to tell you something. Sometimes technology reflects the chaos in our lives, you know? I hung up and watched him throw his phone at his front door. It bounced off harmlessly. Reinforced steel, very secure. Too bad it wouldn't open for him. Claire came downstairs an hour later, already dressed for work in her sharp business suit. She poured coffee without looking at me, her movements stiff and angry. Matt called, she said finally. His house is malfunctioning. Technology, right? Always breaking down when you need it most. She turned to face me, her expression unreadable. He thinks you did something to it. Me? Claire? I'm unemployed. I spend my days in sweatpants, sending out resumes and watching Netflix. When would I find time to become a master hacker? Owen. Besides, why would I mess with Matt's house? We're neighbors. We're supposed to look out for each other. I stood up and rinsed my mug in the sink, taking my time. Speaking of looking out for each other, you might want to let Matt know that standing on his lawn in his underwear isn't a good look for a startup CEO. Someone might take pictures. Claire left for work without another word. I watched her BMW pull out of the driveway, then settled in at my computer to do some real work. Matt had made this personal when he pulled out that money. Claire had made it personal when she offered the deal in the first place. But what really bothered me wasn't the insult. It was the assumption that I'd just take it. That I was too weak, too passive, too beaten down by unemployment and middle age to fight back. They were about to learn how wrong they were. I spent the morning researching. Matt's startup, Pinnacle Solutions, was one of those vague consulting firms that promised to optimize synergies and leverage core competencies. His LinkedIn profile was a masterpiece of corporate buzzwords and humble bragging. His Instagram showed a lifestyle of expensive restaurants, weekend trips, and carefully staged photos of his entrepreneurial journey. What it also showed was patterns. Matt ate lunch at the same 3 restaurants, worked out at the same gym, and had coffee every Tuesday at the Starbucks near Claire's office building. Claire worked in HR for a mid-sized marketing firm downtown. Her schedule was predictable: client meetings on Mondays and Wednesdays, team meetings on Tuesdays, administrative work on Thursdays and Fridays. She usually grabbed lunch with her friend Lexi, who worked in PR for a competing firm. Lexi was Claire's enabler, the friend who encouraged her worst impulses and helped her rationalize bad decisions. If Claire was having an affair, Lexi would know about it. She'd probably helped plan it. I made a list of everyone in Claire's inner circle, then cross-referenced it with Matt's social media connections. The overlap was smaller than I'd expected, but there were a few interesting names. People who worked in the same office park, went to the same gym, attended the same networking events. Small world, especially when you're trying to keep secrets. By noon, I had a plan. Nothing illegal, nothing that would get me arrested or sued. Just a systematic dismantling of the comfortable little bubble Matt and Claire had built around their deception. I started with Matt's professional reputation. Matt's company website was a thing of beauty, sleek design, professional headshots, testimonials from satisfied clients. It painted a picture of a successful young entrepreneur who'd built his business through hard work and innovation. The reality was messier. Corporate filings showed Pinnacle Solutions was barely breaking even. Matt's team of expert consultants consisted of himself, one part-time employee, and a virtual assistant in the Philippines. His office address was a shared workspace that rented desks by the month. More interesting were his social media habits. Matt was one of those people who couldn't help oversharing online. His Twitter feed was a mix of motivational quotes, industry insights, and personal updates that revealed far more than he probably intended. Like the fact that he'd been spending a lot of time at Claire's office building lately, posting photos from the coffee shop across the street with captions like, "Great meeting with potential clients," and "building relationships in the community." Or the fact that his posts often included location tags that didn't match his supposed business activities. Why was a tech consultant spending so much time at the art museum, the botanical gardens, the boutique hotel on 5th Street? I cross-referenced the dates and locations with Claire's calendar, which synced to our shared Google account. The pattern was clear once you knew what to look for. Every time Claire had a client lunch or off-site meeting, Matt was posting from somewhere nearby. They weren't even trying to be subtle about it. I screenshot everything, organized it by date, and saved it all to a secure folder, evidence for later when I decided how to use it. Next, I turned my attention to Matt's smart home system. Having administrative access was like having a key to his private life. I could see when he came and went, who he talked to on his video calls, what he watched on TV. What I found was a man who lived alone, but wasn't lonely. His security cameras had captured several late-night visits from a blonde woman who looked familiar. It took me a few minutes to place her, Sasha, the yoga instructor from the gym where both Matt and Claire worked out. Interesting. Matt was juggling 2 relationships, and neither woman knew about the other. That gave me leverage. I spent the afternoon setting up monitoring systems. Keyloggers on Matt's computer, audio recording on his smart speakers, alerts whenever certain keywords appeared in his messages. Nothing that would hold up in court, but enough to stay ahead of whatever he and Claire were planning, because they were definitely planning something. Claire came home that evening with takeout from my favorite Thai restaurant, a peace offering disguised as dinner. She was trying too hard, smiling too much, asking about my day like she actually cared about the answer. "I've been thinking about last night," she said as we ate pad thai from paper containers. "Maybe we should talk about it." "What's to talk about?" "You made a joke. Matt took it seriously." I interrupted an awkward moment. "End of story." "Is it, though? You seemed pretty upset." I looked at her across our dining room table, this woman I'd been married to for 15 years, and tried to remember when she'd started looking at me like I was a problem to be managed. "Claire, if I was upset about every stupid thing Matt Kincaid said or did, I'd never have time for anything else. The guy's a walking midlife crisis with a startup and a Tesla. He's not worth getting upset about." She relaxed slightly, probably thinking she'd dodged a bullet. "So we're okay?" "We're fine," I lied. "But maybe next time you want to joke about selling your husband, pick someone who understands sarcasm." After dinner, Claire retreated to her home office to catch up on work. I cleaned the dishes and listened to her make a phone call through the thin walls. She was trying to keep her voice down, but I caught enough words to know she was talking to Lexi. He's not suspicious. I think he bought it. Matt's being paranoid. I finished loading the dishwasher and went to my own office, where I pulled up the audio feed from Matt's house. He was on a call too, pacing around his living room and gesturing at his phone like the person on the other end could see him. She says he doesn't suspect anything, but I don't know, man. The timing was too perfect. My house goes crazy right after he walks in on us. The voice on the other end was tinny through the smart speaker's microphone, but I could make out the words. You're being paranoid. The guy's unemployed and depressed. He's not some kind of mastermind. Maybe. But I'm telling you, something felt off about the way he handled it. Too calm, you know? Like he was planning something. Smart man, our Matt. Too bad being smart and being careful weren't the same thing. I spent the next few hours going through Matt's digital life with surgical precision, his email accounts, his cloud storage, his social media messages. The picture that emerged was of a man who thought he was cleverer than he actually was. He'd been careful about not leaving obvious evidence of the affair, but he'd been sloppy about everything else. His business was hemorrhaging money, propped up by a combination of credit cards and personal loans. He owed back taxes, had missed payments on his car, and was 2 months behind on his mortgage. The fancy lifestyle was all smoke and mirrors, funded by debt and desperation. That explained the $1,000 he'd offered for me. It was probably the last cash he had to his name, and he'd been willing to throw it around to impress Claire. But it also gave me another angle to work with. A man with financial problems was a man with vulnerabilities, and vulnerable men made mistakes. I was counting on Matt to make a big one. The next morning, I put my plan into motion. Step 1 was simple. Make Matt's life inconvenient in small, deniable ways. His smart alarm clock didn't go off. His coffee maker started brewing decaf instead of regular. His garage door opened every time a car drove past his house. His smart thermostat decided it was summer in January, cranking the heat to 85 degrees. None of it was dramatic enough to call the police about, but all of it together painted a picture of a man whose life was slowly falling apart. Step 2 was more targeted. I'd noticed that Matt liked to post motivational content on LinkedIn, the kind of generic inspirational quotes that were supposed to make him look thoughtful and successful, so I helped him out. Using his account, I started sharing more personal content. Posts about the challenges of entrepreneurship, the loneliness of leadership, the pressure of maintaining a perfect image when everything was falling apart inside. The posts were well written and emotionally honest. Too honest for someone trying to project success to potential clients. They made Matt look vulnerable, desperate, like a man on the edge of a breakdown. His phone started ringing within hours. Concerned friends, worried business contacts, potential clients who were suddenly having second thoughts about working with someone who seemed so unstable. Matt called me that afternoon, his voice tight with panic. "Owen, I need your help. Someone's hacking my accounts, posting things I didn't write. You know about computers, right? Can you fix this?" The irony was delicious. The man who'd tried to buy me for $1,000 was now asking for my help. "That sounds serious, Matt. Have you called the police?" "And tell them what? That someone made me sound depressed on LinkedIn? They'll think I'm crazy." "Maybe you should call a professional. There are cybersecurity firms that handle this kind of thing." "I can't afford—" He stopped himself, but the damage was done. "Look, I just need someone to look at my computer, maybe change some passwords. I'll pay you." "How much?" The silence stretched for several seconds. $100? I almost laughed. $100 and what, Matt? A burger? The line went quiet. When he spoke again, his voice was smaller. "You heard that." I was standing right there. "Owen, look. I'm sorry about that. Claire was just messing around and I was drunk and you thought it would be funny to pull out $1,000 and make an offer. Yeah, I remember. It wasn't like that." "What was it like, Matt?" He didn't have an answer for that, so I gave him one. "Here's what it was like. You thought I was pathetic enough that you could humiliate me in my own kitchen and I'd just take it. You thought I was so beaten down by unemployment and middle age that I wouldn't fight back. You thought wrong. I hung up and went back to work. Step 3 was the most important: gathering evidence of the affair itself. I needed proof that would hold up in divorce court, documentation that would make it impossible for Claire to spin the story in her favor. That meant being patient, waiting for them to make a mistake. Fortunately, cheaters always made mistakes eventually. They got comfortable, careless, confident that they were smarter than everyone around them. I didn't have to wait long. Thursday afternoon, Claire texted me that she'd be working late, a client emergency that required her immediate attention. She'd done this 3 times in the past month, always with the same apologetic tone, always with just enough detail to sound legitimate. This time, I was ready. I'd planted a GPS tracker in her car the night before, a tiny device hidden under the rear bumper. Not illegal. Technically, I owned half the car. The tracker fed location data to my phone in real time, so I could follow her movements without leaving my house. Claire left her office at 5:30, just like always. But instead of heading to the client meeting she'd described, she drove straight to the Marriott downtown, the same hotel where Matt had been posting Instagram photos for the past 6 weeks, always with captions about business meetings and networking events. I gave them 30 minutes to get settled, then made my move. The Marriott had excellent Wi-Fi in the lobby, and their guest network was laughably insecure. It took me less than 10 minutes to access their reservation system and find Matt's room number. He'd booked a junior suite on the 14th floor, paid for with a credit card that was probably maxed out by now. I didn't go upstairs. I didn't need to see them together. I had enough evidence already. Instead, I sat in the lobby with my laptop and documented everything. Timestamps, photos of their cars in the parking garage, screenshots of Matt's credit card transaction for the room. Then I ordered room service. Not for them, for me. I had the hotel restaurant send a bottle of champagne to Matt's room, along with a card that read, "Congratulations on your new venture. Hope it's worth the investment. A friend." My phone rang 15 minutes later. Matt's number, but Claire's voice. "Owen, where are you?" "Home. Where are you?" "At the office, like I told you, but someone just sent champagne to—" She stopped herself. "To where, Claire?" The silence stretched for 10 seconds. Then, "I have to go." She hung up, but the damage was done. They knew I knew, and they knew I was watching them. The comfortable bubble of their secret affair had just popped, and now they'd have to decide what to do about it. I drove home and waited. Claire didn't come back until almost midnight. She tried to sneak in through the garage, but I was sitting in the kitchen with a cup of coffee and a stack of printed photos. "We need to talk," she said. "Do we? Because you've been doing a lot of talking lately, just not to me." I spread the photos across the kitchen island like I was dealing cards, GPS logs showing her route to the hotel, credit card statements showing Matt's room charges, screenshots of their social media posts that correlated with their meeting times. Claire stared at the evidence, her face cycling through emotions: surprise, anger, fear, calculation. "How long have you known?" "Since the night Matt offered to buy me, but I've suspected longer than that." She sat down across from me, suddenly looking older than her 38 years. "What do you want?" "I want the truth. How long has this been going on?" 3 months. "Why?" She laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Why do you think? You've been unemployed for almost a year, Owen. You sit around the house in your pajamas, sending out resumes for jobs you'll never get. You've given up on everything, your career, your appearance, us. So you decided to trade me in for a newer model? Matt makes me feel alive again. He has ambition, drive, plans for the future. He's building something. He's building debt. The guy's broke, Claire. His company's failing. He's behind on his mortgage, and he's funding his lifestyle with credit cards." "That's not true." I pulled out another stack of papers, Matt's credit reports, tax liens, loan documents, all public records, all perfectly legal to obtain if you knew where to look. Your boyfriend owes more money than he'll make in the next 5 years. The fancy car is leased, the house is mortgaged to the hilt, and his business is hemorrhaging cash. He's not successful, Claire. He's desperate. She studied the documents, her face growing paler with each page. Where did you get these? Does it matter? The point is, you're throwing away 15 years of marriage for a man who's about to lose everything he owns. We can work through his financial problems. With what money? You make $60,000 a year. That won't even cover his minimum payments. Claire stood up abruptly, scattering the papers. This is about more than money, Owen. This is about feeling wanted, feeling valued. When's the last time you looked at me the way Matt does? When's the last time you made me feel beautiful? When's the last time you gave me the chance? You've been pulling away for months, making excuses, starting fights over nothing. I thought it was stress from work. Maybe it was easier to let you think that. We stared at each other across the kitchen island. 15 years of marriage reduced to a pile of evidence and a handful of bitter truths. So what happens now? I asked. I don't know. Matt thinks we should tell you everything. Ask for a divorce. And what do you think? I think you're going to make this as difficult as possible. I think you're going to use all this information to hurt us. She wasn't wrong. I'd spent weeks planning exactly how to hurt them, mapping out their vulnerabilities, gathering ammunition for the war I knew was coming. But sitting there in our kitchen at midnight, looking at the woman I'd loved for half my adult life, I realized I didn't want to destroy her. I wanted to understand her. Claire, if you'd just talked to me, if you'd told me you were unhappy, that you needed something different, we could have worked on it. We could have gone to counseling, taken a vacation, figured out how to fix what was broken. I tried to talk to you. You were always too busy with your job search, your consulting projects, your plans to start your own business. You never had time for us. So you decided to have an affair instead. I decided to find someone who had time for me. The words hung in the air between us, sharp and final. There was no coming back from this conversation, no way to pretend things could go back to the way they were. I'll sleep in the guest room tonight, I said. Tomorrow we'll figure out the logistics. Owen? What, Claire? I'm sorry. About the joke. About the way this happened. You didn't deserve that. I nodded and started gathering up the papers. No, I didn't. But maybe I deserved the truth a long time ago. I went upstairs and lay awake until dawn, staring at the ceiling and listening to Claire cry through the walls. Part of me wanted to go to her, to comfort her the way I had for 15 years whenever she was upset. But that man, the one who would sacrifice his own dignity to keep the peace, was gone. Matt had ruined him with $1,000 and a heartless joke. What was left was someone harder, smarter, and a lot less forgiving. The next morning, Claire was gone before I woke up. She'd left a note on the kitchen counter. Staying at Lexi's for a few days. We both need space to think. I crumpled the note and threw it away, then made coffee and sat down at my computer. I had work to do. Matt's house was quiet. His car was gone, probably at the office trying to salvage his business after yesterday's LinkedIn disaster. I used his security system to check the interior cameras. Empty. Perfect. I'd been saving the best for last, waiting for the right moment to deploy my nuclear option. That moment had arrived. Matt's computer was still connected to his home network, still logged into all his accounts. His email, his social media, his business systems, everything was accessible if you knew how to look. What I found in his private messages was better than I'd hoped for. Matt hadn't just been cheating with Claire. He'd been running a pattern, targeting married women in financial or emotional distress, presenting himself as a successful entrepreneur who could offer them a better life. Sasha, the yoga instructor, was married to a deployed soldier. Matt had been promising to help her start her own studio, lending her money she couldn't repay, creating a dependency that made her vulnerable to his advances. There was another woman, Jennifer, whose husband had recently been laid off. Matt had offered her a job at his company, a job that didn't exist, in exchange for her consulting services. And there were others. A pattern of predatory behavior that went back years, documented in chat logs and email threads that Matt had been too arrogant to delete. I screenshot everything, organized it by date and victim, and saved it all to multiple secure locations. Then I started making phone calls. Sasha first. Her husband was overseas, but she had a right to know what Matt was really after. "Hello, is this Sasha Martinez?" "Yes. Who's this?" "My name is Owen Fletcher. I'm a neighbor of Matt Kincaid's. I have some information about him that I think you should know." The conversation was difficult but necessary. Sasha had suspected something was wrong. Matt's promises about the yoga studio never materialized, and he'd been pressuring her for more than just friendship, but she'd been isolated, vulnerable, afraid to trust her instincts. By the end of our talk, she was angry. Angry at Matt for manipulating her, angry at herself for falling for it, and ready to make sure other women didn't suffer the same fate. "What can I do?" she asked. "Help me document everything. Gather any messages, emails, financial records. We're going to make sure Matt can't do this to anyone else." Jennifer was next, then the other women I'd identified from Matt's message history. Each conversation was similar: initial disbelief, followed by recognition, then anger and a desire for justice. By noon, I had a coalition of Matt's victims, all willing to go public with their stories, all ready to make sure the world knew what kind of man Matt Kincaid really was. But first, I had one more call to make. "Claire, it's me. We need to meet." "Owen, I told you I need space. This isn't about us. This is about Matt. There are things you need to know before you make any permanent decisions." She agreed to meet at a coffee shop downtown, neutral territory where we could talk without the weight of our shared history pressing down on us. I arrived early and chose a table in the back, away from the afternoon crowd. Claire showed up 20 minutes later, looking tired and defensive. "What's so urgent?" she asked. I slid a folder across the table. "Matt's been lying to you, about everything." She opened the folder and started reading. Financial records showing his debts, business documents revealing his company's failures, screenshots of his messages with other women. Her face went pale as she turned each page, the reality of Matt's deception becoming undeniable. "This can't be real," she whispered. "It's all real, Claire. He's not successful, he's not honest, and you're not the only married woman he's been pursuing. You're just the latest in a long line of targets." She closed the folder and pushed it back across the table. "Why are you showing me this?" "Because despite everything that's happened between us, I don't want to see you destroy your life for a lie." "And what do you want in return?" "Nothing. This isn't about us anymore, Claire. This is about making sure Matt can't hurt anyone else." She sat back in her chair, processing the information. "What are you going to do?" "I'm going to expose him, publicly, professionally, completely. The women he's been manipulating deserve justice, and the community deserves to know what kind of person he really is." "And me? What happens to me when this all comes out?" I looked at my wife, my soon-to-be ex-wife, and felt something that might have been pity. "That's up to you, Claire. You can be another one of his victims, or you can be complicit in what he's been doing. But either way, the truth is coming out." She left without another word, taking the folder with her. I finished my coffee and drove home, where I spent the rest of the day preparing for war. Saturday morning brought the kind of perfect autumn weather that made Massachusetts look like a postcard. Clear skies, crisp air, leaves turning brilliant shades of red and gold. It was the kind of day that should have been spent raking the yard or taking a drive through the countryside. Instead, I was about to destroy a man's life. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. Matt's victims had agreed to go public simultaneously. Social media posts, reviews on business sites, reports to professional organizations. A coordinated strike that would make it impossible for him to control the narrative or discredit individual accusers. But first, I wanted to give him a chance to see it coming. I called Matt at 9 a.m., knowing he'd be awake, but not yet fully functional. He answered on the fourth ring, his voice groggy and suspicious. "Owen, what do you want?" "I want to make you an offer, Matt. The same kind of offer you made me last week." "I don't know what you're talking about." "Sure you do. $1,000, remember? You thought that was enough to buy a man's dignity. Let's see what your dignity is worth." The line went quiet for a moment. When Matt spoke again, his voice was sharper. "What are you getting at?" "I know about Sasha. I know about Jennifer. I know about all the other women you've been manipulating. I know about your debts, your failing business, your whole pathetic scam. You don't know anything. I know enough to destroy you. The question is, what's it worth to you to make this go away?" Matt's breathing changed, becoming faster and shallower. "How much do you want?" $10,000, cash, today." "I don't have that kind of money." "Then find it. Sell the car, liquidate your investment accounts, borrow it from your parents. I don't care how you get it, but you have until 6 p.m. And if I don't? Then tomorrow morning, everyone in this town is going to know exactly what kind of person Matt Kincaid really is. I hung up and settled in to wait. The beauty of the ultimatum was that Matt couldn't possibly meet it. He was broke, maxed out on credit, and too proud to ask his family for help. But he'd spend the day trying anyway, making increasingly desperate phone calls and burning bridges with anyone who might have loaned him money. Meanwhile, I had other preparations to make. The Riverside Community Center was hosting their annual Autumn Festival that afternoon. A family-friendly event with food trucks, local vendors, and a small stage for community announcements. Half the town would be there, including most of the people who mattered in Matt's professional and social circles. I'd volunteered to help with the sound system, which gave me legitimate access to the microphone and speakers. What I planned to do with that access wasn't exactly what the organizers had in mind, but sometimes justice required a little creative interpretation. At 2 p.m., I loaded my car with audio equipment and drove to the community center. The festival was already in full swing, families with young children, elderly couples holding hands, teenagers trying to look bored while secretly enjoying themselves. It was the kind of wholesome community gathering that Matt liked to post about on social media, positioning himself as a local business leader who cared about civic engagement. Today, it would be the stage for his downfall. I spent an hour setting up the sound system and testing the equipment. Everything worked perfectly: clear audio, good volume coverage, no feedback or technical glitches. When the time came, everyone would be able to hear exactly what I had to say. Matt arrived at 4:30, looking haggard and desperate. He'd spent the day trying to raise money, calling in every favor and exploring every option. The stress showed in his face, his posture, his wrinkled clothes. He found me near the sound booth, checking microphone levels for the evening's announcements. "Owen, we need to talk." "Did you bring the money?" "You know I don't have it, but maybe we can work something else out." "Like what?" "I'll leave town. Disappear, start over somewhere else. You'll never see me again." "What about Claire?" His face crumpled slightly. "She doesn't want to see me anymore. Not after you showed her those files." So Claire had made her choice. Interesting. That's not enough, Matt. Running away doesn't fix the damage you've done to those women. "What do you want from me? A public apology? I'll do it." "Will you? Right here, right now, in front of all these people?" He looked around at the festival crowd, neighbors, business associates, potential clients. "Owen, please, there has to be another way." "There is. You could have been honest from the beginning. You could have treated people with respect instead of seeing them as marks to be manipulated. But you didn't, and now you have to face the consequences." At 5 p.m., the festival organizers called for community announcements. Local business owners promoting upcoming events, volunteer coordinators recruiting for charity drives, the usual civic housekeeping that kept small towns running. I waited until the end, then stepped up to the microphone. Good evening, everyone. My name is Owen Fletcher, and I have something important to share with you about one of our neighbors. The crowd quieted, sensing that this wasn't going to be a typical community announcement. I could see Matt at the edge of the gathering, his face white with panic. Last week, a man offered to buy me from my wife for $1,000. He thought I was pathetic enough, broken down enough, that my dignity could be purchased like a commodity. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. People were looking around, trying to figure out who I was talking about. That man was Matt Kincaid, who some of you know as a local entrepreneur. What you might not know is that Matt has been systematically targeting vulnerable women in our community, manipulating them financially and emotionally for his own benefit. I pulled out a folder and began reading names, dates, details. Sasha's story, Jennifer's story, the others. Each account was brief but specific, documented with evidence that would be impossible to deny. The crowd's murmur grew louder, angrier. People were pulling out phones, taking pictures, recording video. Matt tried to push through the crowd toward the stage, but several men blocked his path. These women trusted Matt, I continued. They believed his promises, his lies about success and opportunity. They gave him their money, their time, their faith, and he betrayed all of them. I could see Matt shouting something, but the crowd noise drowned him out. Security volunteers were moving toward him, responding to the obvious distress he was causing. I'm sharing this information because our community deserves to know who Matt Kincaid really is. Not the image he projects on social media, not the lies he tells at networking events, but the truth about his character and his actions. I stepped back from the microphone as the crowd erupted in discussion. People were angry, disgusted, demanding answers. Matt was being escorted away from the festival grounds, still shouting denials that no one wanted to hear. The reckoning had begun. Within an hour, the story was all over social media. Videos of my announcement, screenshots of Matt's messages to his victims, financial documents showing his deception. The local Facebook groups were buzzing with outrage and support for the women who'd been brave enough to come forward. Matt's business phone was ringing constantly, clients canceling contracts, partners ending relationships, professional organizations launching investigations. His social media accounts were flooded with comments from people who'd been fooled by his façade. By Sunday morning, Pinnacle Solutions was effectively finished. Matt's website was down, his office space was being cleared out, and his professional reputation was destroyed beyond repair. I felt a satisfaction that was both profound and hollow. Justice had been served, but it had come at a cost that went beyond Matt's downfall. Claire called me Sunday evening. I saw what happened at the festival, she said. It's all over town. Good. People needed to know the truth. Owen, I want you to know that I had no idea about the other women. If I'd known what he was really like, would it have made a difference? She was quiet for a long moment. I don't know. Maybe. Probably. Claire, I didn't do this to hurt you. I did it to protect other people from getting hurt the way you were hurt. I know, and I'm grateful, even if it doesn't feel that way right now. What happens now? With us, I mean. I think we both know the answer to that. Too much has happened. Too much has been said. We can't go back to the way things were. No, we can't. I'll file for divorce next week. I won't contest anything, the house, the assets, whatever you want. I don't want to punish you, Claire. I just want us both to be honest about what this marriage became. It became a lie. We both stopped trying, stopped caring, stopped seeing each other as real people. Matt didn't cause that. He just took advantage of it. She was right. Our marriage had been falling apart long before Matt Kincaid showed up with his $1,000 and his cruel joke. He had just been the catalyst that forced us to face the truth we'd been avoiding. For what it's worth, I said, I'm sorry too. Sorry I let myself become someone you couldn't respect, someone you felt you had to lie to. We both made mistakes, Owen. But maybe we can learn from them. Maybe we can. After she hung up, I sat in my kitchen and looked around at the house we'd shared for 8 years. The granite countertops Claire had insisted on, the stainless steel appliances I'd researched obsessively, the family photos that would need to be divided up like everything else. It should have felt like an ending. Instead, it felt like a beginning. Matt Kincaid had tried to buy my dignity for $1,000, thinking I was too weak and broken to fight back. He'd been wrong about that, just like he'd been wrong about so many other things. But in trying to destroy me, he'd actually freed me. Freed me from a marriage that had become a performance, from a version of myself that I'd stopped recognizing, from the comfortable lies that had been slowly suffocating us both. The price had been steep. My marriage, my comfortable suburban life, the illusion of stability I'd built over 15 years. But what I'd gained was something Matt could never understand. The knowledge that I was stronger than I'd thought, smarter than people assumed, and capable of fighting for what mattered. That was worth more than $1,000. That was worth everything. 3 months later, I was sitting in a coffee shop in downtown Boston, reviewing a contract for my first major consulting client since starting my own business. The work was challenging, the pay was good, and for the first time in years, I felt like I was building something meaningful. My phone buzzed with a text from Sasha. Saw the article in the Globe. Congrats on the new business. The article had run that morning, a feature about local entrepreneurs who'd turned personal setbacks into professional opportunities. They'd interviewed me about Fletcher Consulting, the cybersecurity firm I'd launched after the divorce was finalized. The reporter had been particularly interested in my story about exposing Matt Kincaid, which had become something of a local legend. I'd downplayed my role, focusing instead on the importance of digital privacy and the vulnerability of smart home systems. Matt himself had disappeared shortly after the festival incident. Rumor had it he'd moved back in with his parents in Ohio, but no one really knew for sure. His house had been foreclosed on, his car repossessed, his business dissolved. I didn't feel bad about that. Actions had consequences, and Matt had spent years avoiding his. Claire and I had settled our divorce amicably. She'd kept the house, I'd kept my retirement accounts, and we'd both kept our dignity. She was dating someone new, a teacher from her gym who seemed decent enough from what I'd heard. We didn't talk often, but when we did, the conversations were civil, even friendly. We'd both moved on, both learned from our mistakes, both found ways to be better versions of ourselves. As for me, I was discovering that being single at 45 wasn't the disaster I'd thought it would be. I had my work, my friends, my freedom to make choices without having to negotiate or compromise or pretend to be someone I wasn't. It was a good life. Not the life I'd planned, but better than the one I'd been settling for. My phone rang as I was packing up my laptop. Unknown number, but I answered anyway. Fletcher Consulting. Mr. Fletcher? This is Detective Sarah Morrison with the Boston Police. I understand you have expertise in cybersecurity and digital forensics. That's right. What can I do for you? We have a case involving online harassment and financial fraud. The suspect has been targeting vulnerable individuals through social media, and we need someone who understands how these predators operate. I smiled, thinking of Matt and all the other Matt Kincaids out there who thought they were too smart to get caught. I'd be happy to help, Detective. When can we meet? The work never ended. There were always more predators, more victims, more people who needed someone to fight for them. But that was okay. I'd found my purpose, my calling, my way to make sure that what happened to Claire and Sasha and Jennifer didn't happen to others. Some people collected stamps or restored classic cars. I collected justice, one case at a time, and I was very, very good at it.